Welcome to Chai with Changemakers. Our daughters went to the same Indian dance class. Jaya's daughter had already been dancing for 2 years. Mine was starting from scratch with a lot of catching up to do. Without me even asking, Jaya sat down and made a video cassette. Yes, the kind you actually put it into a slot. So my daughter could practice and catch up with that summer. That's Jaya for you. No airs. She sat on the floor with us when we didn't even have furniture yet. Never once judged us for being fresh off the boat. That phrase immigrants use for the early days when you're still finding your footing in a new country. Jaya came to the US at the age of 2, practically grew up here, but she never carried herself like there was a distance between her world and ours. She just always has this zest for life that made room for everyone around her. Chai with Changemakers is about impact. And impact at its core is about building something. Sometimes it's building a business. Sometimes it's building a life across countries and cultures. And sometimes it's as simple as building a bridge for a 5-year-old on a dance floor. Jaya has done all three. Jaya Mukherjee, welcome to Chai with Changemakers.
Thank you, Suchi. That was such a beautiful introduction. Really, really nice. Really nice. And for reminding me of those times, they were a lot of fun.
Yes, that's my core memory with you.
Really that we've been able to keep in touch.
Right. So, Jaya, since this is Chai with Changemakers, chai or coffee, what's your go to?
My go-to would definitely be coffee. And especially in the morning. We are a little bit crazy about our coffee and our coffee machines. My husband likes it one way. I like it another way. Uh, but it's always coffee.
Awesome. Do you know that people who drink coffee, they're driven, they're energetic, they're highly productive. And if I know you, you're exactly all those three qualities. And that's why I guess you're also a businesswoman.
Thank you.
So I came into this country as an immigrant myself back in the 2000s. But your story starts even earlier than mine. Your parents came here in the 70s and you were just 2 years old. So tell me a little bit, where did your parents move from? And do you know the reason why they moved from where they were?
Yes. So my parents moved from Kolkata, India, which is in West Bengal. And they moved here in 1974 when my father got a great opportunity. He is a professor of dentistry, or was at the time a professor. He's now retired and 89 years old. So he got a job at the University of Illinois and in the Department of Periodontics, and taught there for the entirety of his career and retired as the head of the Department of Periodontics. A second reason, actually, that we also came is that I had myself some heart issues, and it was an amazing opportunity to kind of bring me here and have access to the premier healthcare here. So my father always says that it was really such a blessing that they were able to come and have their kids here.
My goodness, I had not known about this part of you. And that's such a beautiful story, actually. Really nice. So tell me, many kids from that era report feeling a split identity. So who were you at home with your family, and who did you feel you had to be the moment you stepped out that front door?
You know, because I was only 2 when I came, I don't recall having that feeling of two worlds. And, my parents at home, my mom's actually also a professional dentist, but at that time she was home raising the kids and hadn't yet taken all of her examinations and things for her to be a practicing dentist here in the United States. She did that much later in our teens when my sister and I were teens. But I would say that they raised us to know Bengali as, you know, my first language. And then I learned English when I was outside the home, but they both are fluent in English as well. Of course, albeit with an accent, but fully fluent. So we kind of had both at home, but more Bengali at home than outside. And I learned, which is why I don't have an accent or anything. I learned English outside, and that was my world outside. It was just inside, outside, you know?
Completely, though I being the immigrant here, first generation, but my daughter would definitely agree with you. I think in 2000s the world had changed quite a bit as compared to in the 70s, where I feel like there were not as many immigrants from India versus today. So
That's really true. We, however, were raised right in the city by the University of Illinois, and there was a lot of diversity. So I went to school with people who were Mexican, Italian, African American, and then there was me. There weren't other Indians, that's very true, but I didn't feel different in a way that was bad. It was actually different in a way that was really good.
that is
I have some really fond memories of going to school and sharing not Indian culture so much, well, some Indian culture, but also our religion and being able to uh, share things about Hinduism and what kind of dress we wear, saris, and that kind of stuff. And all of that came from my upbringing at home. We would go to India, I would say every 4 years or so growing up. So I was very tied to my Indian culture at home.
that's amazing for you not to feel like you're an outsider, but at the same time, people actually trying to understand your culture, understand what you are as a person, and trying to know your culture more rather than trying to make you feel like you're an outsider. In an interesting twist, you married someone who was born and raised entirely in India, a very different world from the world that you grew in. So, how was that change? Like, how did you manage? And is there any fun memories? If I have to ask my daughter to marry somebody who's from India now, she would absolutely not be comfortable with that thought. So,
So, because my parents spoke Bengali with me and we had such an Indian centered life at home, when I met my husband, it didn't feel any different. And I actually used to do quite a bit as I was growing up with our Bengali Association of Greater Chicago. And that's actually where I met him at one of the BAGC events through a friend of mine. And a lot of my friends in that time were also like me, raised here and had Bengali parents. And so it didn't feel all that different. He'd also gone to boarding school for much of his upbringing and had assimilated here very well. I
okay.
met him just a few years after he had moved here. And yeah, I was very, very fortunate in that time to meet him. And I was just head over heels in love.
I can see that smile, the head over heel smile, even now. So I know you guys are such a great couple, but to see that smile even now when you're talking about him, it's such a beautiful expression. But marriage comes with just not him, it comes with an extended family. So, how was that transition? Any stories there?
That's definitely always been an adjustment. Sometimes it's an adjustment even like 30 minutes ago. But my mother in law lives with us and she's a lovely lady. And my father in law, I never had, unfortunately, the opportunity to meet because he'd passed away when my husband was young. So my husband has always taken care of his mother. And so marrying him, my mother-in-law came with that, and she lives partly between either with us or with my sister-in-law. And now, more often than not, she'll probably end up living with us more. In Indian culture, it is the responsibility of the older son, but over the years up until now, my sister-in-law has taken a lot of care of her, and it's been kind of more her than us. But it's just something that we do. I just don't think about it as it's going to happen one day for my parents as well. And I know that he's going to be fine taking care of my mom.
Yeah. So here, I would say definitely your upbringing, your parents, the way they brought you up, that's extremely incredible because to have raised here an American, but taking care of your mother-in-law, hats off to you, hats off to them, really. And so the two of you built a life together, right? And it was different worlds, but y'all came together. And then this turned into something bigger. You started a business. I wanted to ask you what the business was at that time, and what was the idea and why did you build it?
So in the earlier part of my career and work life, I met my husband right out of grad school. And then I worked for several years. And then we decided that I wasn't going to work and that I was going to raise our girl at that time. And then we ended up having another daughter. But when my older daughter was about maybe 8 or 9, I started thinking that I wanted to do something. And I didn't want to go back to management consulting, which is what I was doing before. So I decided that I wanted to be in business for myself, and knew while that would be difficult, it would also allow me to set my own time and hours and all of that and be able to do the things that I was still doing with her. Of course, that's not the reality of an entrepreneur, but it's probably, a lot more stressful than that. But in the beginning at that time, it did give me a lot of flexibility, and I was able to start a business in not fine jewelry, but at that time it was fashion jewelry. I spent a lot of time thinking what kind of business I would go into. And I considered clothing for a while and thought that that would just be too seasonal
Right.
to do something that we could also start on less funds. And so we decided to go with fashion jewelry. And at that time, also, there was a very interesting thing happening in India. And all these Indian designers were just up and coming at that time. And the internet was just a baby at that time. Things like Shopify and all had just begun.
Right. So we are talking about 2005.
More like for us, it was more like 2009, 10, something like that. Yeah, that's kind of when we began. And it was so much fun to figure out what kind of jewelry I would carry. And so I really spent a lot of time looking into how to take my Indian heritage and work that into fashion jewelry and carry the designers that I felt would represent that brand.
Wow. That's such a deep meaning to the whole business that you had to basically represent your South Asian culture and try to represent it in your own way by building a business for fashion jewelry.
Mm.
And now, obviously, every business has a story, and not all of them end the way we hope. So, just walk us through what happened. You started the business, you learned a lot. You learned how to basically buy the products or get the products, work with people in India, and, put it up online. It was a new world of online sales. And I'm sure that was exciting, but it was a lot of work. But at the same time, something happened. So walk us through what happened.
We had actually just barely launched. To start a business like this, there's just so much that happens before anything happens for the public and for selling. And so I was able to get through much of the groundwork of the setup and who we were going to carry, how we were going to sell, and start a little bit of that. We had even gotten a little bit of press, but before anything could really get off the ground, we got some really wonderful news as a family. And my husband actually got a great secondment opportunity in Japan. And so that kind of changed things for us just on a personal level. And so I stopped the business because of that, because of the business itself. So it really didn't have a chance to get off the ground at all. I think we were probably had introduced it, and we'd started in 2010, but then in 2012 we'd moved. But I probably hadn't introduced it to the public until
Right.
the following year and a half anyway.
Right, right. So basically, you just decided that you would just stop what you're doing and support your husband and move your entire family to an amazing place like Japan. So at that point, stopping a business, what thoughts went into your mind?
What it really was, it was exciting from all viewpoints. We always wanted to live somewhere else. And
Okay.
we used to talk about that as a couple all the time, that let's just go live somewhere else. And we didn't know where that somewhere else really was. But when this opportunity came up, we were both first to jump on it. And it was an opportunity that he made within his work life, obviously. But when it came about, it was something we would have put away everything to do. And it was just a fantastic thing. From a difficulty standpoint, for sure, we had a daughter who was just starting middle school, but the little one was just 5. So for her, she grew up in Japan and she calls it home now, today,
That's
and
beautiful.
my older one too, because of the amount of time we ended up spending there, they both see it as a very deep part of who they are. Just like India, even though I never lived there, is part of who I am because of my parents. To them, it's Japan.
Wow. So for you, it was not just stopping your life. It was basically looking forward to something more exciting. And as I said in the introduction, you always had a zest for life. You always looked at things positively. And that's such a beautiful thought. Like to have that kind of an attitude and to do anything, nothing seems impossible. So you went to Japan as an expat and
Mhm.
not as an immigrant. Now, is expat just a nicer word for immigrant, or is an immigrant completely different to an expat?
That's an interesting question. You're not an immigrant from the standpoint of all the things that would be afforded to you as someone who would be an immigrant, right? And as a seconded family there, with the kind of job that my husband had, we were given housing and we were given the school. And so it's a different thinking and it's also temporary. I think that's the biggest part of it is that you haven't gone there to live there forever. You've gone there because he was on a specific project and there for a short period of time. It is disruptive. You can think of it as disruptive to your family life. And while it is an opportunity, if you see it the right way, which is how we saw it, it is still disruptive to everything that you know. So it's not being an immigrant. It is being an expat in a country is very, very different from that perspective.
So, for an immigrant, the biggest problem or biggest thing was fitting in, right? To the culture that is you belong to at that particular place. Now, for an expat versus an immigrant, how was the fitting in process?
I would say that one of the biggest benefits of taking a young family there is that you have the school to rely on. And everyone in that school, the kids went to an American international school. There are families there, not only from America, but from many other countries in the world. And they all needed to fit in, so to speak. And we relied on each other and for many years lived in a bubble.
So,
That
that makes sense. So
Mhm.
basically, you guys were always cocooned. Okay. So now it's Japan, right? It's such a
Mhm.
beautiful place. And y'all were there at a time when Asian culture had just started taking off. Like people were so curious about dramas and the music industry, the food, the culture. So walk me through a normal day for you in Japan, typically as an expat. How did you live your life?
Not very different from how I lived life here, especially when I was taking care of the kids. So early on, I would, in the first several years, my little one had to be walked to school. And we would find one of the most interesting and fun things is that it's a walking city. So, and we lived in the heart of Tokyo. So we would find different paths to walk to school. The train system is absolutely amazing. So we would take the train some days, other days we would walk to school. After several years, I actually got a lot more involved in school and I joined the school board. I helped other families who were incoming to the school to be able to assimilate into life in Tokyo. So it was called the Connections Program, and we would just connect families who were already at the school with other families and help them to understand how to buy groceries and how to understand different things about the school at whatever age group that they joined.
Interesting. Life in Japan is different versus in the US. But give me some different things that you felt you should be letting us know about Japan. And what was like, wow, that's crazy.
Okay. There is Nothing I don't like about Japan. It is the most amazing, beautiful place. The people are wonderful. They just have a really good heart. One of the most amazing, beautiful things is the amount of respect and politeness, and just that there is this layer of culture when it comes to Japan. You see that in many other heritage, like Indian heritage, Italian heritage. There are certain ways that, people are. And Japanese, you learn to do many things that are very respectable. You need to be kind and polite to people in the way that you say. Even today, when I write emails to people, the way that you introduce yourself every single time, whether you've known them for years or you're working with them brand new, the way that you give someone your business card with two hands, all of that. It's really lovely.
I've heard also that it's so safe that kids
Yes.
as small as maybe 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds can walk to school and they should be absolutely fine. And they travel alone in public transport.
Yes.
Wow.
It's not only that they can, but they do, and they're expected to, actually. So you see little 5-year-olds walking to school by themselves and training to school by themselves, not just walking a block away to school. They're getting on 2 trains and going to school with a
Wow.
little on and backpack on, a little phone hanging from their backpack. It's really wonderful not to have to think about things
Wow.
and to be that in that safe society. That was always really wonderful.
So, what's a memory from Japan that you still carry with you today?
I guess that's a little bit of a tough one. I don't feel separated from Japan, especially because of what I do for work at all. I did many things there to bring myself more part of the society and uh, make my bubble burst just a little bit, in that I didn't really learn the language, but I know enough to just the numbers and just survival Japanese. I can read just a tiny bit. It's very little, but I can read a menu. Let's put it that way. Sounds awesome, but it's really not for the time that I lived there. I definitely didn't try hard enough, but I did work for organization there, like a charity, while I was there. And then just up until last year, I was also on the board of the Japan American Women's Club and was doing work for them. So I don't feel separate from it, and I don't plan to separate myself from it.
You truly are a change maker because the fact is, you moved all the way, you're trying to build your life there, but not only that, but you also choose to give back to the community where you belong to at that particular time. So that's an amazing thought. And I would say that you have truly integrated yourself in that culture and that country. So after everything happened, you moved to Japan, and this time you again, after your first experience for your husband's growth of career, choosing to stop your first business, and then you start again. Now, why did you start again? Was there any nervousness to start again, or was it just I learned something from the first one, so this was my stepping stone to the next venture that I want to actually do? So, what was the feeling like?
So we had 2 stints in Japan. We were there for like 8 years the first time. Then we moved back to New York for about 3 years. And then after the tail end of COVID, my husband got another opportunity to go back. And that's when things sort of changed. I mean, I don't know whether I would have done something here and differently, and we might be having a very different conversation. But he got another opportunity that took us back to Japan. And by that time, my kids are getting much older. It was time for me to do something. And I always not regretted closing the business, but it had remained a passion and interest of mine. And we were very fortunate to meet in our first go around some really wonderful families who introduced me this second time around and became my mentors for the business that I'm in today. And they are part of the wholesale diamond industry. It takes knowing people to start this kind of business. And we're very fortunate for me to have met my mentor there. And especially this second time around, spent a lot of time learning how the business works. And in the 3 years that I was there, and then coming back here and actually starting something.
Okay. So let's let our listeners know, when did it spark you wanted to do this business and what the business is actually?
Okay. Well, like I said, my mentor is in the wholesale diamond business, and I thought that's what I wanted to learn. And that's what I set out wanting to learn.
Okay.
It's one, not an easy business to get in, and it requires a lot of capital. Both
And we are
things.
talking about lab grown diamonds, not
No,
just diamonds or just diamonds.
yeah, just diamonds, just
Okay.
natural mined diamonds. That is what they do. But as I had conversations and was beginning learning everything, there was a very interesting thing that was brewing, and more so in the Americas, where kind of trends start here and then branch worldwide, especially for the diamond industry. And the industry was changing. And lab grown diamonds, which had been around for 50 years, they finally succeeded in making them gem quality. And that's when things changed. And that change has only occurred in the last several years. And jewelry, as I said, is just something that I've always had interest in. But we wanted to do it differently. So this time it's fine jewelry. The internet has come a long way. Now we have AI. It's a different world from what it was when I began the first time. So nothing could be the same. You can't just buy product and hope to sell it and hope that it's going to go well. It had to be different.
Right. So there's a lot of conversation around sustainability and ethics in the diamond business. Now, was that what drew you towards lab grown diamonds rather than regular diamonds? There's
Mhm.
obviously sustainability, there's ethics, because the way original real diamonds are mined.
I would say what drew me towards it and what makes it just so amazing is the fact of creativity. Now that they are not in limited supply and that they can be made, it's incredible what can be done with it, both from a standpoint of the diamond itself and then also because of the cost, the kind of jewelry that can be made with it. And I think it's that level of creativity that can be put into something that is technologically advanced. Is that was what drew me to lab grown diamonds and using lab grown diamonds as the centerpiece of our jewelry.
Beautiful. So, what drew me towards your pieces was your pieces were crafted by artisans in Kofu, city of gems. The roots go back to almost 1100 years. And now that ancient world basically is colliding with something that is as modern as lab grown diamonds. Now, what made you choose that world instead of the local artisans in the US? Like, what is the significance of that craftsmanship?
So Kofu, as you said, in the Yamanashi prefecture, is they began with quartz mining and cutting stone, and then that developed into precise metalwork. And so for 1,000 years, that area has been the focus of where fine jewelry is made in Japan. A lot of both contemporary emerging artisans as well as those that have been around for ages use that area for manufacturing their jewelry. And Japan as a culture and as a whole, if you know it, you know how much care they put into creating things, whether it's cars, shoes, guitars, jeans. Quality of both the craftsmanship and the material is important there. And so I was very fortunate to know people because of our time there to create the connections to have our jewelry made there and designed there and have the diamonds brought in and set there.
Wow. It's almost like there's so much heritage and culture right there. There were people who carried it generations together to teach other people how to build or how to polish them or how to get the diamonds instilled in the metals, culture and heritage that is carried forward. And the blend of the lab grown diamonds with the originality of that craftsmanship, it's just incredible. And so you are members for 1% of the planet. Now that's called creating an impact for the community. Now, for listeners, can you tell us what is 1% for the planet?
So 1% for the Planet it's a really lovely organization that has thousands of brands that are on 1% for the Planet. And what we liked about the organization is that it is a scalable model. So right now we have just launched. Our 1% is not a whole lot. And what 1% right now, what they ask of you from day one is a certain dollar value that you have to put in to become part of 1% for the Planet. And then as you grow, it's a scalable model that's going to be 1%. No matter how big we get, we have to donate that. And then what they do is they work with organizations to make this world a better place and sustainable for tomorrow. And it's a really wonderful initiative that we're very proud to be part of from day one.
You really didn't have to do that. But the fact that you guys actually started out and then chose to be part of that 1%, it just shows so much of your wanting to give back. And that's such a noble thought of you guys. It's beautiful, actually. And for people to understand that there are brands out there actually giving back 1% of, and it's not just profits, it's also sales, I would say, right?
Okay.
So to give back 1% of their sales to make this world a better place, hats off to you guys. Now we're going to go to our next segment, which is called the Auntie Hot Seat, which is just a quick one word or question. Sushi or ramen? Pick one forever.
Sushi or ramen? Sushi, hands down, any day.
Wow. Which one's your favorite?
Which sushi?
Uh huh.
Tuna, for sure.
Tuna. Okay. That's
Medium
it.
tuna.
You're a true Bengali, I would say. So, US or Japan? Where's the food better?
Japan.
Of course. I've heard about it.
Yes.
Solitaire or statement piece? What is your style?
Solitaire, please.
Ooh, and I heard your first collection is all about solitaires.
It is. It is.
Do you want to tell me why you chose that?
Yes, because as I said, our business is about craftsmanship. And the first thing that we wanted to bring in was to show the two things that makes us who we are, which is the craftsmanship and the diamond. And there's nothing that does that better than a solitaire piece of it. We wanted to, for now, highlight the lab grown nature of the stone and the beautiful jewelry that surrounds it.
Beautiful. One Japanese word or phrase you still catch yourself using today.
Sumimasen. Sumimasen means, so in a restaurant, let's say you wanted to flag down the waiter, you would say sumimasen. And it's a respectable way to say, excuse me.
So,
Or if you're going to bump into someone, but if you do bump into someone and you just slightly, you might say, oh, sumimasen. So I love that phrase.
basically another word for excuse me, but in a nicer tone, I would say.
Mhm.
Awesome. Sumimasan, I should remember that. Which famous personality would you love to see your jewelry basically being worn on?
Gosh, I don't know if I have an answer for that.
Or let's say anybody who you think you would be proud of to wear your jewelry.
My children. And they're not famous, but I think it's really amazing and wonderful how much they support me. And right now, if there's any two women that I would want wearing my things, it would be them.
What's a favorite Bollywood movie growing up for you?
Say Birza. I really enjoyed that movie. We watch it every once in a while.
Onsen, which is a traditional natural Japanese hot springs, or Mount Fuji. Which one would you go back to right now?
That I would say depends on the time frame of this conversation. Had
Okay.
it been winter time, I would have said onsen without a doubt. But now in the summertime, I would say Mount Fuji. It just takes your breath away when you see it every time you see it.
Nice. Beautiful. Bowing or handshake? Which one did you catch yourself doing back in the US?
Handshake. The bowing happens when you are servicing someone, so at a restaurant or something. So the bowing happens kind of for you. You don't have to bow back. Bow my head and acknowledge that someone was bowing.
Okay.
but I wasn't bowing myself.
Perfect. Somebody who's providing services, they're the ones who usually will bow.
Mhm.
Okay. So if Facets N, that's your new company, has to be described in one word, what would it be?
Limitless. And that is kind of the reason why it's called facets n. N is, it's like the n as a mathematical value n that can represent anything. It can represent infinity.
Nice.
And because lab grown diamonds are this force that allows us to do so many new things in a creative world, we hope to bring limitless design and creativity to what we offer our clients.
So this comes to my last question for you, Jaya. And this is more like, so imagine writing a letter for somebody who feels like she doesn't belong to.
Okay.
And for somebody who basically they're building something and they had to pause for a minute because of circumstances around them. What would you tell them?
I think that anything that you do in your life, it comes with fear and anxiety, but it requires looking beyond that and knowing that the fear of change can be a good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. A lot of times the anxiety is due to we're afraid of the unknown. But I would urge them to think about wherever they are to that date and how many times they've been through a change situation in their own lives, even if they're young, something that they were afraid of. And how did it turn out? Because change can be a really good thing too. And sometimes we forget that. And I think that to do something and be successful in something, you have to think about being successful, not about hoping not to fail.
Right. It's the process.
Yes.
It's the journey. The
Yes.
journey is more important because every step leads you to something new. And every step you leave, you learn something and you're kind of learning on the go. So that's such a beautiful thought. And I hope a lot of young girls who listen to this or maybe who would see this would actually learn or take this little advice from you. That's beautiful. So before we wrap up, Chai the Changemakers is on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. So please do subscribe for more stories just like this. And Jaya, a business that taught you everything for what was coming, a whole new life in Japan, and now something you're building with your own hands and creating an impact in the community by giving back 1% of sales for approved environmental nonprofits. You basically are a person who's already creating an impact. And thank you so much for sitting with me today. And I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming to Chai with Changemakers.
Thank you for having me on, Suchi.
Thank you. Bye bye.